Good morning, friends. I'm Jen at Snapdragon Quilting, and this video today is all about glue basting. What is it? Why would we use it? And my favorite products to use. And the tools I'm going to show you today, the products I show you today, there are links down below. And of course, if you like this video, please like and subscribe so that other quilters like you can find this video. All right, so let's get started. So what is glue basting? Glue basting is a substitute for using pins or clips to hold things together when you're making a quilt. I really like to use glue basting when I am doing long seams, because the problem with long seams is that the fabrics can pull unevenly as they feed underneath the needle of your sewing machine, creating inconsistencies. So the borders can be really wavy, too long, too short, and we don't want that to happen. So some people will use pins, some people will use clips, some people will use a walking foot. I always use a walking foot, but I also glue baste because I find it just makes it perfect. So long seams are fabulous, and I have a quilt top today that is for my Sunshine Puff quilt pattern, which is releasing May 15th of 2024. So this one's not quite out yet, but stay tuned, it is. I use glue basting though for putting on my long borders, so that's a good option. I also use it when I want to match up seams. So in this quilt, there are little cornerstone squares, and I pressed those in opposite directions so I could nest them together, but I still went ahead and put a little bit of glue in that seam, so these squares came out perfect. The other time I like to use glue basting is when I'm doing binding. So I will stitch my binding to the front, and then I'll flip it over to the back, I'll press it, and I will put a little bit of glue on there to hold it, so if I'm gonna hand stitch it down, my binding doesn't shift, it stays right in place. Okay, so let me tell you about what I like to use for glue basting. I like to use plain old regular Elmer's school glue. And the nice thing about Elmer's is it's not really glue, it's actually starch. So now I'm talking about just the regular school glue, not the glitter kind or the clear kind. You have to use the old school regular Elmer's. This washes out beautifully. Now, the problem with Elmer's though is it can come out really fast, and we only need a little tiny bit because the more we use, it can get messy. And so I really like these fine line glue applicator tips, and I do have these in the shop, the links below, and I will show you this up close, but it makes just this fine little tip, and so it's really easy to control how much glue is coming out, so I can get just a little bit of glue. Another great option is Acorn's precision piecing product. It's called Seam Align Gentle Hold Fabric Glue. This is also washable, but the nice thing about this is it already comes with that fine little tip, so again, you can get just little small amounts. These two glues work very similarly, so whichever one is your favorite, go for it. All right, let me give you a close-up view of how this process works. Okay, so here's the close-up view of my ironing board, and I like to do all my glue basting over on my ironing board, and that way I can use my iron to heat set the glue, dry it out, and it works a little bit faster. Now, of course, you can leave the glue to dry, especially like I live here in Vegas, it dries really quickly. But I like to stitch it usually right away, and so I go ahead and do this on my iron. Okay, so I've opened up my Elmer's glue, and this part here I've already glued on here, and I wanted to show you that even after I've set the glue and dried it with my iron, it's still really easy to pull apart. So if you glue it together and you don't quite like it, that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this part back on, and you can see I'm going to go through here and just make a tiny bead, and sometimes I go back and forth a little bit to get the glue to spread just a little bit, but I'm going to do that with my fingers too. So I just want a little bead of glue there, and you can see I'm trying to keep it in that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now what happens if I put a big blob of glue on there and it comes out past my 1/4 inch seam allowance? No big deal. Do the same thing. Go ahead, put your glue on, match up those raw edges there, heat set it, and finish the whole seam. Now when you go to sew this, you're going to sew that down, and then you're going to want to open up your fabric here. What you can do is you can just pop it. You can pull this apart and
so it doesn't matter if the glue is in there or not, because you can still get that seam to lay really flat and press it even if there's some glue there. And then this glue is all washable, and so when we're all done making this quilt, we can just run it through the wash and all the glue will be gone. Again, it's this Elmer's glue is not glue, it's starch. So I'm going to keep going and just put this little bead of glue on all the way across, and I kind of work in sections. I'm just matching up my raw edges, and then I set it with my iron. The most common question I get when I am showing glue basting is it going to gum up my needle? Now remember, the glue that I've used here, Elmer's, is not actually glue, it's starch, and it's dry. And so just like if you were starching your fabric, the starch won't gum up your needle. It's the same here. And you can see, because all of these fabrics fit together so perfectly, it stitches quite quickly.
Thank you so much for watching this video about glue basting your quilts. If you have questions, please let me know in the comments below. And of course, I'd really appreciate it if you like and subscribe and tell your friends. Happy quilting!